what is the next big news that drops? What's the next morning we wake up with? And it's like Tesla bought $1 billion of Bitcoin. What's the next news like that? Is it a big company? Is it, I just kind of want to know your moonshot.
I think the next news that'll drop is you'll see some big investment, like famous investment names, like big macro investors or big investors in the market. And then someone will say, yeah, we bought $1 billion worth of it, or we bought a lot of it and we're buying a lot more. Okay. I don't know which one, but look, there's 10,000 big companies that could buy $1 billion of this. There's 10,000 big investors that could buy $1 billion of this. And there's 10,000 individuals floating out there that could buy $1 billion of this. And that's the universe. And right now, I announced I bought $1 billion. Elon Musk announced he bought $1 billion. We've had a couple of announcements of 750 million. So, you got 30,000 different players, and there's not a lot of room in this thing. So at some point, you're going to see 1, 2, 3 more of them. They're going to come out with serious news like that because it's possible and it's logical.
I think it's got to be Apple. That's what I want to happen, is like last time we talked about the Apple buying as much as possible, becoming like the Fed of Bitcoin. I'm still like, Apple, stop building an electric car to try and compete with Tesla. Just literally buy 100 billion of Bitcoin as fast as you can, and you'll make $1 trillion in 5 years. And that'll add the trillion to your market cap instead of fiddling around with competing head on with Elon Musk. Like if I actually, you know what I mean? Like, and it's almost going to be fiduciarily like irresponsible for them not to have done it when they just hold their fiat. But anyway, that's like kind of, I just keep feeling like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy once you do it. And that's why Elon said in retrospect, it was inevitable. It's like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Bitcoin's up 30%, never going since just because of Tesla. So
it is sitting right there. Apple could raise $100 billion in debt at 1 or 2% interest. They can
compound it 200%
money.
Yeah.
And again, the leverage comes from the cheap debt markets, the corporate debt markets, convert and secured debt market. That's the leverage. The fulcrum, the place to stand, is Bitcoin. And so we're waiting to see which company is going to be the Archimedes, and they're going to use that leverage against that fulcrum to move the world. Yeah, it could be. I think the real issue right now, or at least a subtle issue, is the accounting treatment. If you buy the underlying Bitcoin as an intangible asset, and I think conservative CFOs, they're kind of it creates a little bit of pause for them to buy billions and billions of dollars of an intangible asset, because they'll have to do non-GAAP accounting on a balance sheet item and explain it to their shareholders. And so if they don't do that, then they have to go and they have to buy it as a fund, and then they have to get comfortable that if they held it in a fund model, that they would get GAAP accounting. And so I really think right now, working through the way they communicate it to their shareholder base and the way they account for it is what causes people to pause before they aggressively pursue this strategy.
Yeah, the ETF tidal wave, I feel like is totally coming. And the other thing that I've been thinking more about Tesla, like from my personal shareholders standpoint, is like Tesla just raised $5 billion of stock that was cash, and then we bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. We're probably already up, 500 million, 700 million on that Bitcoin position.
$1 billion on that trade.
Yeah, they're probably up $1 billion. So it's like, wow, like it's not just like this is a cool experiment. Like the first company that did it, not only did Tesla do it and they pulled it off and they got some heat for it, but it was okay. But like they just got $1 billion that they don't have to dilute again. So from a shareholder perspective, this was a genius move, and we're already up $1 billion. I'm like, damn, we just $1 billion in cash. 2 years ago, we only had $2 billion in the bank. So for us to get $1 billion free on our capital allocation strategy is starting to be a real game changer for some of these companies. So as a Tesla shareholder, I've been like, wow, like this is,
And you got to keep in mind that now Tesla has $2.5 billion, which means that if Bitcoin
when it doubles again,
if they double, they're going to generate a $2.5 billion gain, which means you'd be looking at $3.5 billion in investment income in probably 12 months.
And I bet SpaceX is going to buy Bitcoin, because I saw them in attendance for one of your webinars, apparently, or I think it was that. Someone sent me a screenshot, And I was like, that's interesting because SpaceX keeps raising a couple $1 billion. Like if when you get to the point of where you're burning capital, it's interesting to see how like this is such an accretive, like really materially changing the dilution profile of a lot of these companies if they can get in early. So I think a lot, like it's kind of weird if you're a startup company that needs cash to be putting some money in Bitcoin, but I thought that was interesting. The second somebody tweeted me that, I was like, SpaceX into Bitcoin. Like, well, if they had done that earlier and made a bill, then they would have had to dilute less. Like,
well, first of all, the public markets are willing to finance well-known entities like public companies with equity and debt and large sums of it. And the cost of that capital, if you're a public company, is between 0 and 3% or 0 and 5%. The return on Bitcoin this year is 470%, but the annualized return for a decade is 198% every year. So what you see is any public company that is brave enough and is willing to work hard enough to figure this out has the ability to arbitrage billions of dollars at zero at a 200% return. You just have to do the work. I posted a quote by Archimedes. Archimedes said, if you give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum upon which to place it, I can move the world. Bitcoin is that lever and is that fulcrum. To understand it, everybody is struggling for a point of stability in the financial universe. I can't put all of my financial leverage on gold. Gold is 10 trillion and it's sinking, and gold miners are producing more. I can't leverage up debt. I can't borrow $1 billion and then buy $1 billion of sovereign debt. That doesn't make any sense. I can't leverage up a lot of things. Where's the leverage? And the leverage is in 21 million Bitcoin. There's only 21 million. It's $1 trillion asset class. $1 trillion asset class at the center of a $500 trillion monetary planet. And everybody's getting buffeted around by the EU's printing and the US Fed is printing and the peso is falling and interest rates are fluctuating, and would you invest $100 billion on a piece of land? Well, land where? What would the mayor say? What will the governor say? There's risk in investing in real estate. There's risk. Are you going to buy $1 billion worth of oil? There's risk. There's risk in commodities, risk in real estate, risk in sovereign debt, risk in corporate debt. Junk bonds are yielding less than 4%. Okay, there's return-free risk, lots of risk. So where's my point? Where do I stand on it? If I'm trying to create the next great city in cyberspace, it'll be built on 21 million blocks of Bitcoin.